Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Sports Talk 920. I am your host, Michael Goodman, doing things a little bit differently this time, not on Blog Talk Radio. Right now we're on Spreaker, I think is the correct term to use it. We're going to try this out for a couple episodes here, mainly when Rudy's not on. I haven't figured out if there's a way you can call us on a cell phone here, but so we'll try it out here and see how it goes. But anyway, welcome to Sports Talk 920 here on Spreaker now. Getting all new software here, but same great show, same great flavor. Got a pretty good show lined up for you here today. We can talk about the NBA Finals going into Game 6, and obviously if you listened to the show last week, you know that at least I didn't think it would get to this point. I think I got a confession out of Rudy last week that there was no way that we'd be getting to Game 6, and of course now we're looking at Sunday being the big Game 7 for the NBA Finals. I know the big thing here, and kind of something that we talked about last week, is the lack of parity that's in the NBA. And, sometimes it seems like the NBA might be a little bit rigged or what have you. More or less rigged. I don't know how else you can phrase that. But anyway, I think what you look at here, and I guess I wouldn't be shocked. A series that was going, where the Golden State Warriors were leading 3-1, basically thought that the series was over. And as we talked about last week, that Cleveland has come out and won the last two games. It comes down to Game 6. I would still say the Golden State Warriors would win. I think that outcome still becomes the same. Again, I think that's more what the NBA does, kind of rigs it to make it last longer, to draw it out. I don't know if they, to basically have it being a one-game shootout. We'll see maybe how the game's played on Sunday in a few days. But I really think, too, that, you watch these last two games, and I haven't really watched a lot of it, mostly highlights and whatnot, and I think the one big thing that I would say is that the Golden State Warriors are just not playing well. It doesn't appear that the refs are playing a big part of what's going on as far as the struggles for the Golden State Warriors. You can say with Draymond Green's suspension for what he did to LeBron. I know that was kind of a touchy subject, but I guess it is what it is. We'll see what happens in Game 7 here, and looking forward to see who's being crowned champs. I'm going to pull for Cleveland. Don't think it will happen yet, but I've been known to be wrong before, especially when it comes to the NBA Finals. And one other thing I did want to hit on lastly before we did hit on the subject, or leave the subject of the finals, would be the Steph Curry incident with him throwing his mouthpiece after he got ejected from the game last night. And I was listening to Mike and Mike this morning, and people were tweeting in or whatever, however they get a hold of the show, emailing, blah, 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 that Steph Curry should either be, which I think a fine is a just cause for doing an act. I mean, maybe a childish act or something. And for two, I mean, it's kind of gross throwing your mouthpiece, your saliva at somebody and it lands on you. But people were writing in that they wanted to see him suspended for Game 7 because it could have hurt someone. Or it's, since it does have your saliva on it, it is the equivalent of spitting on said person, which that's a bit of an overreach there, especially with the injury. I mean, really, if a mouthpiece hurts you, that might say more about you than it does about Steph Curry. I think, if it happened to me, to be honest with you, I'd be going to Sarah, would be if we were at a basketball game, the wife, that I'd be like, okay, take a picture of this. We're gonna put it on eBay right now. Prove that we got it here. We're at the arena. We're gonna put it on eBay and we're gonna sell it. We're gonna sell it while it's the getting's good, I guess you can say, and get my money's worth out of it, because it's probably gonna be worth a couple $1,000s, and you'd probably get some publicity with maybe an apology gifts from Steph Curry for throwing his disgusting mouthpiece at you too. So I mean, it's a win-win situation for whoever gets thrown on. But I believe the who it was thrown on was a part owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So probably not a big interest for him to sell the item. But I just thought something was kind of interesting. And the people that want to see him suspended, I think the bigger part of that people want to see that is they're probably people that are going to be pulling for Cleveland on Sunday, that they want to see him win, or maybe might be interesting enough that if Steph Curry or the Golden State Warriors can win the NBA Finals without him, but it's not going to happen. And the other the one last weird thing about that too is that Steve Kerr was giving him the okay of it, kind of giving him a pass, that it was okay for him to show his frustrations that way, which I wouldn't condone it. I guess I would understand why he'd be frustrated about getting fouled out, but basically saying that because he's an MVP, he's a great player, that he shouldn't be in foul trouble, and that's where I think the biggest thing in the NBA is kind of screwed up, is because they give these certain All-Stars immunity. I mean, most of the NBA games I watch are the Milwaukee Bucks. And, what is it, 2 steps before you can travel, before it's called traveling? They take a step and a half when they're playing against LeBron. But, a guy like LeBron could take, 7 steps before it's considered dribbling for him. And, they kind of call it a little bit differently for the NBA superstars. So to see him in foul trouble, it shouldn't be as rare as it is. But, we'll leave that be and look forward to the Game 7 on Sunday. I might actually have to tune into that one to see who comes out on top, because again, I'll eat crow from what I was talking about last week. I didn't think we were even going to have a series to this point. I didn't think that we'd get this far, and I didn't think it was going to get this interesting. And obviously tempers are going high. The Golden State Warriors, granted, even though they just won it last year, they got a lot to prove with the regular season that they had. Almost like the Carolina Panthers this past season, having a great regular season and not getting it done in the championship game. Even going back to like the New England Patriots back when they went 16-0, and getting to the Super Bowl and not being able to convert on such a great season. You had a record-breaking season in all of the NBA, and is there like a bomb threat there at the UEFA Euro soccer thing? I'm watching ESPN. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, so I mean they got I think a lot to live up to. As far as that concerned, they're throwing like flares or something onto the field. And see, I'm just watching this. I don't know when this was. They're throwing like fireworks or bombs or some. Oh, one guy got hit in the face with a firework or something. Boy, oh boy. Man, oh man. So again, it's like a little firework that kind of blew up in the safety worker's face. It didn't look like it hurt him too bad, but again, I still got to say, the people here in America, they talk about, like NASCAR fans being rambunctious and crazy, football fans, stuff like that, and getting in a few fights, which is dumb. I'm not condoning that by any means, but they're trying to put soccer on, and nothing against soccer. I mean, going to that game again in Chicago a few years ago, going to it live was pretty fun actually. But I always said, the way some of these soccer fans act in other countries, and I think that's why, a lot in, political stuff too, that these people got to compare what the rest of the world's doing and why America can't do what the rest of the world's doing. But if you look at how they react to some of their sports, soccer is a big sport in all these other countries. Let's see, swastika chemically burned on the field of qualifying. Wow. Just crazy. This is all I think that happened during the week here, but obviously, the fans get very passionate, very crazy, very political, and just stuff. Glad you don't see in America. A lot of times you do. People take sports pretty seriously. People get in scuffles. Some things get a little too serious too, but no chemicals, swastikas chemically burned, no fireworks going off in workers' faces or players' faces, and let's hope that doesn't continue and doesn't become a trend in all of sports. But anyway, wow. Getting back to what I was kind of gonna talk about here. As we talked about last week when we were obviously on Blog Talk Radio last week, we went to the races at Michigan. Went to the ARCA race on Friday. Had a pretty good show there for I think the ARCA series. It was my first ARCA experience. Of course, normally the ARCA series runs on smaller tracks, usually tracks under a mile in length, or usually right around half-mile tracks. So the competitiveness that's in the ARCA series is not great. From you look at that field, they had some guys using the new body styles. I can't remember if it's like a 5-star style body system, kind of like you see at the local racetrack, where you can replace fender piece by piece to kind of keep the cost down. But they have the new body styles that you see in the Sprint Cup with the Ford Fusion, the Chevy SS, and the Toyota Camry. But then you've seen guys that had 2006 Monte Carlos was the last year that they ran, and I know that up till a couple years ago, before they came out with this new body that they had, some of the chassis that they ran were from the late 90s. I think one of the chassis, I think it was only like 2 years ago, if not last year. I was watching an ARCA race at Daytona when a guy was running a chassis that was run by Rick Mast when he failed to qualify for the 1997 Daytona 500. And I remember actually watching that qualifying and seeing how it took years off his life, like 10 years off his life for missing that race. It was so stressful for him. That's neither here nor there. I'm just proud that I remember that. But anyway, for one being a car that failed to qualify, maybe that's why they sold it. But at that point, the car was almost 20 years old. I think it was like an 18-year-old. So it must have been last year, like 17, 18-year-old chassis that they were running, and basically you get guys that are just non-existent. But Brandon Jones, the Richard Childress developmental driver, he's running for the Xfinity Series. He won the race. I can't remember the guy's name who stayed out on fuel. Made it interesting to a point that otherwise I think the race would have been a little bland. I believe Briscoe was in the 77 car. He was the other car leading for a bit. That racing was decent. But as far as an ARCA race is concerned, with the different levels, especially with a team like Richard Childress, who has that Sprint Cup money, a lot of ARCA teams don't have that. The Cunningham Motorsports, which is a very competitive ARCA team, obviously doesn't have the deep pockets that a Richard Childress would have. I think it was up until 2 years ago they were still running Dodge bodies in ARCA. So, without any manufacturing support in the sport, that does become a problem. And then went to the Dream 100, the Dream late model $100,000 race at Eldora on Saturday night. We decided to forego the Xfinity race, which Daniel Suarez didn't win his first Xfinity Series race, which with all the success that Gibbs is getting credit for, and all these young guys that are coming up, this